Welcome to another edition of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal, I'm Griff, and we're updating some hot and heavy news that's been coming in on Thursday night. We had the signing by the Dodgers of Kyle Tucker, and then the Mets retaliated at noon by signing Bo Bichette on Friday, and then the Phillies, who were also in on the action, signed JT Realmuto. So they got their catcher back, and we'll discuss all of that starting now with with the breaking. We'll start with Kyle Tucker because that was the first signing. 4 years, $240 million. What do you think the Jays front office reaction was? Because they were hot and heavy on signing Tucker, and they've lost out to the Dodgers before. We know that. What do you think, Mel, that the reaction behind the scenes with the front office was?
I think that was the guy they were after, obviously, the whole time. And reports were obviously they were in the closer to the 10-year term, which I guess isn't what guys were looking for. So I kind of think after going after Tucker that they might be done at this point. And further to the Bo signing now, it appears that really may be the case, other than some major minor moves. But and maybe that's okay for now. Obviously everybody wanted Tucker or Bo or both, but they've had a decent offseason, and it's a lot of commitment to Tucker. Although perhaps they should have been in on the shorter term deals. It seems like maybe they miscalculated on what both guys could what they could be gotten for in a short-term deal, because that seems to be the play for both players. But certainly for Tucker, $60 million. I mean, how do you turn that down with the opt-outs, that he's looking at and at his age and things along those lines? Clearly that was the preference. Getting that high AAV, and they've been here before. All in all, I think the Jays are in an okay position as we sit today, but certainly not happy losing out again to the Dodgers. I mean, it seems to be a thing. So
we've talked about it before, but it seems to me that there's been a shift in priorities of free agents. Especially given the amount of money, the ludicrous amount of money that's always being involved. It used to be you offer the most money, you offer the longest deal, you're likely to make that deal. But right now it's about comfort level. It's about the ability to remain flexible in the future of your career. It's on betting on yourself, not just one time, but twice, which a lot of guys are doing, especially with short term and opt out, and then getting more AAV with that. But in terms of the Blue Jays, I do believe that because they've fallen in love with contending every year, and Rogers knows they can make a bucket full of money by making it to the postseason and the World Series, I think that they're not interested in the short term as much as they are in the long term, because they know where their source of revenue is coming from. It's coming from Rogers, which is the ownership, which is them. And so down the road, they can see those revenue sources being constant because it's them. And so if they offer 8 to 10 years to Kyle Tucker, I believe that they thought that would do the trick. They had the most term and the most money on the table, but with the change, and it might take some teams a while to adjust to the change in priorities of free agents, where it's comfort, where do I want to play? I'm surprised. Maybe Kyle Tucker didn't watch the World Series, because every free agent that the Jays have brought in said, "Oh, I love the atmosphere. I love playing for a country. I love this. I love that."
Are you trying to tell me there's more than one team in this league that might be okay city to play in and okay management team? Get out of here.
That's what we're being brainwashed to believe.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny is how the league kind of tried to screw over Boris by not giving his guys long-term deals, and he had to suffer with these short-term with opt-outs. And now that seems to be the preference. Boris gets you every time, man. Yeah. Now everybody's doing these deals.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be likable to be brilliant, and he's the best at what he does.
Yeah.
People reluctantly follow his lead, even though they don't know they will be years later. And that's what's happening now. I mean, the guy gets $60 million a year with an opt-out after years 2 and 3. Like, the Dodgers were probably looking and go, sure, we'll give you that opt-out. No problem. Because the belief has got to be that nobody, if he opts out in 2 years, and if one of those years was disrupted by a work stoppage, then what are the odds that anybody's going to even come close to matching what the Dodgers gave him on Thursday night?
Right. It'd have to be the Mets where you're going, and for some reason you want to get out of there, whatever. You can't even imagine that's a scenario, right? So, well, correct.
Now my question regarding Kyle Tucker is, I mean, he's a better Nathan Lucas to me. And you laugh.
I think that's a safe comment. Better than he's definitely better.
But is he a $60 million per year player? I mean, to me, the Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts have 3 players that arguably can be better players than Kyle Tucker. And he's making that much money on a team that's already loaded with stars. Is he worth $60 million to anybody, not just the Dodgers?
What is worth anymore? I like it's all relative. I know what you mean. Like, hey, if I'm Vladdy Guerrero after these signings, I might want to renegotiate. I mean, wait a minute. What's going on here? My AAV is not so good anymore.
I thought I was going to be the face of the franchise, and you're trying to throw money around and bring guys in to make more than me.
I'm getting paid a pittance now.
But
I hear what you're saying, though. Like that's an enormous amount of money, $60 million. Obviously, it's a short-term deal, so that's why the AAV is higher. But still,
and he's got $30 million deferred. And you know what I think of deferred money. It's still money, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you told me in 1973 when I started that the money I earned in 2018 would be worth nothing, I'd just go tell you to go screw yourself, you know? like what I
wish I had deferred some money.
Right. Good point. So the summary on Tucker is I think the Jays were legitimately hot to trot on signing him, but I think they had caught a break. I think they were suffering from some sort of heat stroke from being hot in October. And like they already, most of the 2025 season, they had 5 outfielders on a 13-man position player roster. So did they need to bring in another outfielder, especially when they're counting on Anthony Santander rebounding, which is a good bet. I mean, the guy's had one really bad season, and that was last year, and there was injuries surrounding it. But so you got Santander, Varsho, Springer, who obviously likes DHing and responded well to it, but he's still considered a left fielder, right fielder, and as an outfielder. Then Lucas, Straw, Barger, and Davis Schneider. That's already 7 guys.
Yeah, and, I mean, one of the several irreplaceable. What you're missing, Griff, is that big middle order bat. They don't have it other than Vladdy, and you're hoping Santander's. Well, he's going to be it. So you're missing that guy. You know,
100% agree with you. And we've talked about that, about the lack of real 4, 5, 6 hitter for the Blue Jays lineup. And you can't just say, well, Santander, if he responds, can be that guy, or that Barger can be that guy, or Okamoto can be that guy.
Right.
You hoping they can, but you're the defending American League champions, coming within 2 feet of an IKF gaff of winning the World Series. I can't go through it.
You just slide that one by me again. Yeah.
But did they really need to add this guy? So with that being said,
well, they just turned their attention to Bo, right? So how'd that go?
This is where I'm headed with this. All of a sudden, within 18 hours, the Mets go out and sign Bo Bichette, and they came out of nowhere, the white smoke and everything, and we'll discuss that tweet from Steve Cohen. I think the white smoke was meant for Tucker, but since it was going up the chimney, he said he better get somebody for that white smoke, and it turned out to be Bo. But so the next day, without a fight, apparently from the Blue Jays, Bo signs with the Mets. Now, you and I have discussed this. You and I are of the understanding that Bo was gone 3 years ago when he signed his extension to take him to free agency. Signed a 3-year deal, giving the Blue Jays cost certainty, giving them a little bit of a bonus of some kind. But the fact that he would only go 3 years to his free agency, and even though they were likely offering him another 5 on top of that, that was a sign, the first sign that he wasn't going to be back. And then everything has indicated that he was not going to come back. But you have a theory that the understanding with the agent is you never have to remove us from potential teams to sign Bo because it'll help you keep the market up. Is that?
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of what went on here. And I've been very, very adamant since, the first day I was with you that this relationship was over years ago. You never say never. When you win, maybe, you can reconcile a little bit and see if there's an opportunity to bring the guy back and the environment changes. But Bo had been, that relationship soured years ago. And I think in hindsight, too, in the last little while, the Jays knew that and they were ready to move on, too. But I think them being still involved, it keeps the market alive. And I think that's a smart play. The Jays aren't going to come out and say, we're out on Bo, or Bo's not going to come out and say, I don't want to play there. You want as many players in the basket as you can, because you want that market to stay alive where a Steve Cohen is going to jump in and, if he knows he's only bidding against one person as opposed to 4, it changes it. And I think that's just kind of the way it's smart for both the team and the player to play it. And I think it played out that way. But I'm not shocked that Bo's not here. I think a lot of people are upset, but I think it was pretty obvious that this was where it was going to end up with Bo. It was just time for him to move on and them to move on. Like I said, you always keep that smidge of hope alive. But when you sign Okamoto, when you bring in Jimenez, I think you're planning on not having him. And then obviously today's the day. $42 million is a lot of dollars. And yeah, so again, a short-term deal.
Yeah, just to define the Bo deal, 3 years, $126 million, which is far more AAV than anyone was anticipating, especially for the position middle infield and Bo's struggles defensively. And like when you look back on it, there were signs there, and I agree with you 100% that it was the right thing to do for both sides. Maybe not for the fan base, but for Bo to be able to tell other teams that the Jays were still involved, and for the Jays to say that they were still involved so their fan base would be on board, so they could go back to Bo if necessary. So if Bo changed his mind, he could come back to them. But you notice that the Jays never said, we're not going to pursue other free agents. In fact, they were so aggressive pursuing other free agents while Bo was out there.
Yeah, which made it obvious.
Yeah, it was obvious. And there were other factors, like after they beat the Yankees to win the division series, Bo strolled to the pile of humanity jumping on the mound. And he was the last one there, and he didn't look excited. He didn't look anything, Well,
it was tough for him, too, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But, if you're coming back because you love the team and the environment and the city, you would show a little more enthusiasm.
Who might really be pissed off is the Philadelphia Phillies, because apparently they had a deal done for 7 years, 200. So, I mean, and we kind of figured that's where he would end up, the Mattingly connection. And he did. They had a deal done, apparently. So until the Mets swoop in. So that I'm curious, that they must not be too thrilled.
Well, there'll be some behind the scenes reaction from Dave Dombrowski if he thought he had a deal. We might see Don Mattingly being fired before he's in the dugout for his first game as a pitch.
He didn't bring the guy with him he was supposed to. Yeah.
But the reaction by the Mets to immediately sign Bo with the white smoke going up the chimney.
Great tweet, by the way. Great tweet.
Yeah. But it seems that reaction to then sign Bo comes directly from the owner, from Steve Cohen. It doesn't come from David Stearns. And there we have a debate about is David Stearns the right guy for a market like the New York Mets?
Oof. Well, I mean, it's certainly a different than what he's used to, right? And you've got all this money at your disposal, and the rules change. It's not always as easy as you've had it before. So I mean, this is Cohen's show in the off season. You know that.
Yeah.
So your job.
They had to get the richest owner in baseball. So.
Well, your job's to fill in around the edges. I think as the general manager, you're trying to be the sneaky, the depth guy, and look for depth signings and that kind of thing. It's not the same role as it would be in a small market scenario.
It reminds me of two things. One is the Expos in '94. Kevin Malone is the GM, winning or with the best record in baseball at the time of the strike, on a $20 million budget payroll. And then because of that success, he goes and gets hired by Baltimore as an assistant GM. And then the Dodgers, he goes to the Dodgers with their unlimited resources, and he screws that up completely. He goes from a small market, small budget, and he goes to the Dodgers, and he can't do it. And it reminds me of that. And it also reminds me of some guy living on the street, and he wins the lottery and wins like $5 million. And he's back on the street in 3 years,
Yeah. Well, it's like it's Glenn Sather in hockey, going from Edmonton and then all the riches he was given in New York and couldn't get it done. It's not always easy when you have too much choice.
Yeah. then you second guess yourself whether you should be spending that money on a certain player. And the owners, like Cohen, he doesn't worry about spending money on anybody, right? I mean, He just wants to win. And if you're a spendthrift GM or one who watches every dollar, you're not the right guy for a guy like Steve Cohen, I don't think anyway. But we'll see. Maybe he's learned a lesson. But when the Mets went out and acquired Marcus Semien, it's to go with Francisco Lindor. I mean, that was a signal they weren't going to be in on Bo.
It was, right. But now he's your third baseman. And to me, the irony is that when Marcus Semien went to the Blue Jays, he was moved off shortstop to second base because of Bo. And now Bo goes to the Mets and is moved off second base to go to third base because of Semien. So that's pretty funny, actually. Yeah, that's great. Simeon's like, not twice, buddy. Not twice.
And to me, there's a smaller factor at play with the Phillies. And if they thought they had Bo Bichette at 7 years and $200 million, they thought they had an agreement. They did the negotiating on a Zoom call. And when there's that much money on the line, to me, and your headquarters, spring training headquarters is in Clearwater, Florida, and Bo Bichette lives in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Relatively close.
Why not fly down and meet in person and show them good faith in that regard and look into a guy's eyes, not into his Zoom eyes, into his real eyes, and make the deal that way. So,
well, maybe that's where they figured having Mattingly in their pocket was good enough. And with all due respect, Griff, they did have a deal. They did get a deal done, apparently. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there had to be a reason why within 18 hours the Mets jumped up and probably, I don't know how much they would have added to their offer, but it was obviously enough to sway Bo into thinking, okay, sorry, Phillies, I'm going to New York. I'm going to.
That amount of money would do it. I mean, all he'd need to make is $74 million over the next 4 years to equal that deal. Seems pretty easy to do for Bo for the last back end.
Yeah.
In the current landscape of what they're paying, it's
well, that 42 million AAV for Bo Bichette, that matches up so highly against quarterbacks. I'm thinking football here, against shortstops who set the market for that position historically. I mean, A-Rod blew everybody out of the water in 2001 when he signed with the Rangers for 25 million or 250 million for 10 years. But, you know, Lindor is on that list, and Trey Turner's on that list, and Corey Seager's on that list. Now Bo is probably at the top of that list, which is crazy when you think about it.
But that's what I'm saying. The landscape changed. What the Ohtani deal, but mostly the Soto deal, and then them throwing $500 million at Vladdy. I'm sorry, it just it changed. You know what I mean? Until those signings, you're right. You were in the $150-200 million dollar. You know, like the market's changed. Bo came out at a very good time. Let's see how that. You know, let's see how that goes with the impending doom of 2027 in front of us. But they're throwing money around. It's out there. I mean, it's out there. The market's not the same anymore.
So the Phillies' reaction was to sign JT Realmuto for 3 years, $45 million, which seems very reasonable for a guy who's going to be your catcher for the next 3 years and is one of the best in baseball. So that was their reaction. We'll see how it all plays out. But I think, as you said when we started this, that the Jays did a lot of things early. Say they had signed Dylan Cease on January 10th, fans would be ecstatic, you know?
Like, no, they've done a good job. Yeah.
And Cody Ponce is a dark horse. You know, it could be a real surprise. And then Tyler Rogers fills a role for them. So we'll see how it plays out, but spring training is coming up soon. We'll cover the rest of baseball in the next the remainder of this podcast. But how do you think, before we move on, how do you think Bo will handle the Big Apple? How do you think he'll handle the media? He's not big on interviews. He's not big on clubhouse type A leadership. Can he handle a slump with the fans there? And I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he'll be absolutely fine. Look, they put a lot on that kid coming up here, and they kind of gave him and Vladdy run of this franchise when they both came up. So I think there was a lot on his plate, and I don't mean that to be a negative, but you know, he's a different guy now, and I think he understands what's going to be involved, and I think he's perfectly fine. I think he'll be fine in New York. I think he'll understand what he's in for now, and I think he understands that responsibility. You know, he's grown a lot and probably didn't handle everything as well as he would love to, being such a young player and such a prominent player. When he came up with Vladdy, they were the guys. There was no really leadership for them. So I think he'll be perfectly fine in New York, and I think his game and his desire to win is perfectly suited for that market. And there's a bunch of other guys to take the heat off too, right?
Yeah. I think, I mean, first of all, I love Bo as a player, and I love Bo as a kid dealing with him. Yeah. And so I hope you're right about all that stuff. In the meantime, top 30 free agents, the only position players left in the top 30 are Cody Bellinger and Eugenio Suarez. And it doesn't look like either of those would fit the Blue Jays right now. I mean, Cody Bellinger obviously is leaning in New York direction, New York. Yeah. But the Jays may be done, and we'll discuss that later in this podcast too. But so that wraps up the news of the signing, and the Blue Jays may be done. Is that your opinion also?
I think so. I think and I think that's smart. Maybe some minor stuff here and there. But
well, the one thing that they have to address is getting Jose Barrios a new home.
agreed.
All right, well, let's move on to the next thing. This signing by the Dodgers and unlimited spending and having more in two players, if you go AAV, more in Shohei and Tucker than 8 different major league total payrolls, including they opened the season against the Washington Nationals, and those two guys make more than the entire Washington Nationals. So the point is that if they go to a negotiation with the Players Association, and we know that, and we'll talk about your dislike of salary cap, but there's going to be a lot of teams looking to, hey, we need a salary cap. Look at what the Dodgers did. And my argument is that the only way to save that from happening is for the Dodgers to lose the World Series or not even make the World Series. That will prove that payroll isn't everything. But if they win a 3rd straight World Series, I see 100% chance for a lockout.
Yeah, I think 100% is probably likely anyways. I mean, if the Dodgers go win 110 plus games, right? It's hard to, Manfred's pining for a salary cap. And there's no question about it. So Armageddon's coming. And it's hard to, even though I'm in favor of no cap, it's hard to justify, although it's hard to justify a cap when you've got, I don't know. They're going to be screaming for one, right? A team spending $60 million.
Owners are going to be screaming for one. Like the majority of owners will be screaming for one. The Dodgers won't. The Blue Jays not necessarily. There'll be teams, the Mets no. But it will be an internal debate that could shut down the game.
It's going to shut down the game. And he's going to point to the lack of competitive balance. And he's going to point to, I think the competitive difference is more fictional than fact for the most part. Clearly, you have bigger market teams, and clearly the Dodgers have advantages that other teams don't have. I understand that, but they're not, it's not like other teams can't compete. They can. Again, salary caps are about restricting labor. There's other ways to skin the cat, and Major League Baseball does a pretty good job of it. It's what do they do with all that revenue sharing money right now? Well, nothing. It goes into the pockets of the owners. They're not spending it on the product. I think that's a bigger issue that you're going to see where the fight comes from. And the players' side's going to be like, how about you get the Rays and the Marlins and the Pirates to actually spend the gobs of money they're getting given by the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Blue Jays? That's the fight, right? So that's how do you increase competition without necessarily having to restrict labor?
I don't think that establishing a salary payroll floor is going to be a solution. I mean,
right.
I was around. I was with the Expos, of course, when the '94 strike happened, and there was trying to eliminate arbitration and trying for a salary cap, and the Players Association stood firm. I mean, they were willing not to be working in rather than give up those two things. And the salary cap, of course, being the big one, is the only major professional North American sport that does not have a salary cap of any kind. And it works out great for the players. And it's something that they will, in my mind, never give up. They may be some sort of creative modifications that substitute for a salary cap. And I think that's the only solution, is something that will curb the enthusiasm of the Dodgers and the Mets and the Jays in terms of spending outrageous amounts of money, but still not be really per se a salary cap.
That's why, Griff, that's why I said about them winning the World Series. That's why the playoffs are designed the way they are. The playoffs, you get more teams in, it equalizes everything, and it's a crapshoot. So yes, the Dodgers have won the last two, but they could have easily, in a short series, anybody can win in baseball. It's designed for chaos to kind of disguise or eliminate the differences in talent a lot in a short series. So, it's hard to win in the playoffs because you just don't have the length of time to show your dominance over the other teams. So, I think while the Dodgers are guaranteed to be in the playoffs, there's no guarantee you get through the playoffs. And I think that's kind of what the league tries to hang their hat on. You know what I mean? To create chaos. So the wild card team is equally likely to win as the big bad boys with all the money.
That's why
how it goes.
That's my argument, that's the only thing that could save 100% shutdown of the game before next season. The only thing that could save it is if the Dodgers fall on their face, either not necessarily in the World Series, because once you reach the World Series, your point is proven. And we saw last year that you're
there
2 feet away from winning the World Series, and then the Dodgers win. So if they don't reach the World Series, I think that proves a point to some of the whiny owners that, it doesn't guarantee anything. And I think even the Players Association, the union, would be cheering against the Dodgers at this point. That's just what I thought.
Yeah, but it's always been like this too. Like this is baseball. I mean, the Yankees have been the Yankees since I was a little boy. You know what I mean? Like when you realize the power you have and the market you have, and you start to leverage it properly, it's been the Dodgers and the Yankees forever and ever and ever. With some teams moving in and out, and finally the Mets and the Jays have other teams start to compete. Now, instead of just 2 teams, you know what I mean? You've got several teams that are acting like big market. Like it's other teams can compete. They can. It's just, I don't know. It's always been this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned it's always been this way with the Yankees, and I think back to the dawn of free agency in 1976 when Reggie Jackson and his agent went to lunch in Westmount, or went to dinner in Westmount at Charles Bronfman's house. And it was like, yeah, we're going to sign this guy. We're going to sign. This would be great. He'll help this team move forward. And 76 had been a disastrous season, and the last one at Jerry Park before they moved to Olympic Stadium. So the optimism was high. And then the next day, Reggie Jackson flew with his agent to New York, and George Steinbrenner, who is a master of manipulation, takes Reggie for a walk down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and people are yelling, "Reggie, you got to be a Yankee! You got to be a Yankee!" And George is just strolling with him, And of course, the rest is history. He did become a Yankee. Of course, it didn't help that Reggie's luggage was checked at customs when he went to Montreal, and there was some marijuana in his suitcase. And the RCMP went knocking on Charles Bronfman's door. Excuse me, is there a Reggie Jackson here? So that worked against the Jays too. But it's the same story, only on a smaller scale, obviously.
Well, it's relative, right? It's just all
relative. And like it was a big to-do, the contracts that were being signed then. But this is a whole different level, a whole different strata. And the luxury tax doesn't seem to be challenging the Dodgers to not sign players. I mean, they're willing to pay that extra money and just keep signing. I mean, they got room. They got Pages as one of their regulars. They could replace him and improve on that, but it's ridiculous.
Well, but I mean, I think that's the charm of baseball, though. It's always been better with David versus Goliath. Every other sport has turned into this vanilla, everybody's the same. Look at hockey. I mean, everybody's bunched up within 1 or 2 points. They're all got it. You've got to disperse of good players just because you can't keep them anymore. All the other sports are exactly the same. So it's boring. There's flavor to baseball. There's the big bad Yankees and Blue Jays now, and Dodgers, and that's better. I think that's better.
You do need Goliaths for people to hate. And like in hockey, you can point to Colorado. Nobody hates the Avalanche, even though they're the best team.
Right.
And the thing about hockey also is 1 point for an overtime loss. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's designed to keep everybody in the middle.
I watched the Vegas game. They were playing their 18th overtime game last night against the Leafs, and they've lost 12 of them. So that's 12 losses where they get 12 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to make much sense.
Right.
But God bless Mitch Marner. Which brings me
every day. Yeah.
Is Bo Bichette the Mitch Marner of the Blue Jays? Like, would they lose Bo Bichette, say to the Phillies? And we'll make this discussion portion about Bo and about the Blue Jays. But the Phillies seem to have become front runners. Although, why the hell would you do a Zoom call with a guy you're about to spend $200 million on? And they have a Clearwater headquarters. Why not go down there, invite Bo from his home and meet him in person? It seems like not the best way to negotiate on Zoom.
Yeah.
But the thing about Bo is the Blue Jays have said, I mean, we've known from 8 years ago or from 3 years ago when they signed him to a 3-year contract to lead him to free agency that they had negotiated a long-term deal, and he didn't want it. He wanted to go through the process. Now he's in the process. Now the Jays are sort of saying, well, do we really need him? I mean, that's what the Leafs were saying about Mitch Marner. And to me, they miss Mitch Marner more than they thought they would. And the Jays, to me, will miss Bo Bichette more than they think they will.
Yeah, I think they're going to miss him a lot, an extreme amount. I think, and I'm sure they're circling back now. They're really going to miss Bo Bichette. I think that could be especially without getting Tucker. But it's just like I said, I think it's too late. I think that relationship is on both sides is over, and I suspect he's going to sign with the Phillies. It makes a lot of sense. He's, Don Mattingly's probably working hard. They're tight, and there's just such a great fit there. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm sure Boston's probably jumped back in pretty hard now. And I mean, I don't know what the Yankees are doing. That's just I have no idea what's going on over there. They certainly could use Bo Bichette. Yeah, I think you're going to see you're going to get to the middle of the season and go, man, we miss Bo Bichette. We miss Bo Bichette a lot.
Yeah. And the commonality of all the teams that we've mentioned in being in the running for Bo Bichette is that they train in Florida, and Bo lives in the St. Petersburg area. Is big on that, being close to home, and all of those spring training camps, the Phillies, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays are all in Florida. So, that's basically the list of teams that would be interested in signing Bo, but it's down really to the Phillies. And then if the Blue Jays are out there for the rebound, if it doesn't work out with the Phillies. But the Phillies have a problem in that JT Realmuto has been a mainstay of that team, is an important part of that as a catcher, as an all-star, maybe future Hall of Fame catcher, you don't know. But the Phillies fans are divided on whether do we sign Realmuto back or do we go get Bo and not be able to sign JT. And it's the same as Jays fans with the question of Kyle Tucker and Bo. Do you sign Tucker and not be able to sign Bo, or do you want to sign Bo? Well, odds are that the Jays are going to end up with neither. They
are going to end up with neither. And I think what's that?
You're saying 100%.
Well, it's not 100%. Like I said, anything can happen, but I think that's why they've been chasing so many alternatives other than Bo. That's why you sign Okamoto. You know what I mean? That's why you go hard after Tucker to fill that void. I don't think they ever anticipated they were going to do those things and get Bo. I think they kind of know where it was going to end up with Bo, and they've known a long time. And I think they were okay with it. I think the plan was to move forward without Bo. Of course, you circle back. you didn't get the guy you wanted. But
the thing with Bo is
with
Bo is that their representation, the Jays and Bo's representation, I believe, had an agreement that, okay, you'll circle back at the end, but in the meantime, we as the Blue Jays are going to be aggressive looking for other free agents. So there's no promise to Bo, but there is a promise that circle back and we'll see. But just circling back doesn't mean that they will end up with him.
I think the promise,
Phillies, he'll go to the Phillies. But do you think that, say, at Bo's wedding or via text message or whatever, that his teammates have said, "Come on, Bo, come back, let's run it back and see if we can beat the Dodgers this year"? Do you think that is a factor?
Well, sure, but that's not how that goes. I mean, this guy's paid his dues to get to free agency. You're not running it back just because, that's not how that goes. Obviously they're going to have to pay the top dollar, and who knows, maybe they do come back and pay that top dollar for Bo. But I think the agreement was we won't tell anybody we're out on you to hurt your market. I think that's where it is. You want to keep the Jays in the process because you're trying to up the dollar amount for all these other suitors. So I think, there's a respect there where you go, yeah, we're not out on Bo at all. It's always an option, and it always is. But, you don't want to come out and say, yeah, we're out. That hurts the market. And that's,
yeah, but it works.
Want to go down that road as a team.
It works both ways, though, in that you don't have to every 2 weeks call Bo's rep and say, okay, we will now bid this. We will now give him this. So the understanding being, we're not going to compete.
I agree.
And you can continue to use the Blue Jays as a factor. And that's why when the rumor was out there that there was a possibility that they could sign both Kyle Tucker and Bo, was bullshit. But it had to be left that way. Otherwise, Bo gets out of the equation. So, I mean, it's a business thing. And the thing about Bo and comparing it to a business decision, Bo, to me, is not a businessman. He's an athlete. He's a ball player. He's emotional. And how many times have we at some point said, I'm sick of this job. I don't want to work here anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. And then ended up staying. And so, like, when there's rumors out there that Bo told friends that he doesn't want to play the rest of his career on artificial turf. The guy's a shortstop or a second baseman. He's playing on dirt most of the time. When he runs the bases, he's running on dirt. What the hell is he talking about? But it's an excuse that you give somebody, well, I might move on, artificial turf. He heard that it hurt outfielders' knees. He's a shortstop. He's an infielder. So anyway, I was digressing there. But the point is that Bo.
But it's an indication. You're greasing the wheels, right? It's an indication of just, you're just throwing some shit out there to justify your position, maybe. I don't know.
So let's discuss the Hall of Fame ballot, which is going to be in Cooperstown, that is going to be announced before we come back on again for our next podcast, our next Exit Philosophy. You've had a chance to look at the ballot and the candidates. I chose not to vote this year for the first time since 2005. So my candidates that I mentioned right now will not count for anything because I stepped away from the voting process this year. And you remember when we were talking on
why'd you do that?
We were talking on one of the Exit Philosophy podcasts before the end of the season. And it was when Rob Manfred reinstated Pete Rose's eligibility and a bunch of dead players at the behest of Donald Trump. And like, Donald Trump is a big Pete Rose fan. And I emotionally reacted to that and backed away. I said, if Donald Trump is running the Hall of Fame process, and I would have voted for Pete Rose if he was on the ballot from day one because of the numbers that he put up. Not a good guy. I worked with him for a year in 1984. I loved him, but just watching him from afar, watching him from a distance, and the way he carries himself, not a good human being.
Right.
But I don't want the president of the United States dictating who we vote for in the Hall of Fame. So I decided to step away. The Hall of Fame called me and said, we noticed you haven't applied for your ballot. And I explained, I said, I'll come back next year, but I wanted to take a year off. And I don't know whether that affects anyone else, but it's what I needed to do, what I wanted to do. And that's why. So let's go through the list. I'll read the names, and then you can tell me who you liked on the ballot. Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Utley, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, Andy Pettit, King Felix, Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, Vizquel Pedroia, Mark Burley, Francisco Rodriguez, and then newcomers. David Wright is on there, Torrey Hunter, and then the newcomers, Hamels, Ryan Braun, Alex Gordon, Shin-Sin Chu, Edwin Encarnacion, Kendrick, Nick Markakis, Pence, Gio Gonzalez. A lot of these will fall off because they get under 5% of the vote. Matt Kemp, Daniel Murphy, and Rick Porcello. I always only ever vote for 6 to 8. I don't always vote for the 10 that are allowed. Who would you put on your ballot if you had one?
Yeah, I don't think it's a great class this year. For me, I have 4 guys right now that I think I'd put on there. I love putting Abreu is probably the controversial one. I'd also do Beltran, Andrew Jones, and I'm King Felix. King Felix is so underrated. Outside of that, I mean, the A-Rod thing, it ties into everything else, and so does Manny. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have them on there. I mean, if you're going to put those guys on, you have to put in Clemens and Bonds. So for me, I got those 4 guys. I don't know if you got anybody else, but I'm Abreu, Beltran, Jones, and King Felix. That's kind of why. And I know King Felix isn't going to get on. So I mean,
yeah. Well, he's moved up above 50% of the reported ballots, but those numbers always go down when the old curmudgeons who don't want to tell the ballot counting people, when their ballots go in, they usually, all those numbers of guys in the 70s and 80s and 50s go down because they only vote for like 2 or 3 guys and screw everybody else.
Yeah.
But so Felix has been moving up. I mean, he's got a chance in 2 or 3 years to be sniffing around the 75% mark. We'll see. But he's on my ballot. He was the first Cy Young winner as a starter to only win like 12 games.
Right. Gives you Dave Steve vibes, right?
All the peripherals were there. All the newfangled analytics were there, and sort of it created a transition. Basically, Felix was at the head of the transition to the new wave of judging starting pitchers, which I'm not a big fan of. 100 pitches and out.
Right, for sure. But that's the way it is.
So Felix would be on my ballot. Beltran, I've been voting for, despite his participation in the 2017 scandal. I think that stopped him from being already in. It's like Robbie Alomar when he spit on John Hirschbeck.
Yeah,
that made him a second year, because he should have been a first ballot, a Hall of Famer, and he became a second ballot because of that incident. Same thing with Beltran. So he's in. Felix, Andrew Jones. Like I saw that 95 World Series where he announced Andrew Jones is here when he was playing for the Braves. He's a great ball player, great center fielder, great offensive player. Should be in. The others, I mean, Andy Pettit is borderline for me, but I just can't do it. And the first year that he was on the ballot, I voted for Mark Burley just to make sure that he stayed on the ballot. I didn't think he was going to be a Hall of Famer, but I didn't want him falling off the ballot in the first year. And he's in the 20s annually, so I never had to keep voting for him. But yeah, he was fun to watch. He was fun to be around, but that doesn't make you a Hall of Famer.
Well, and I always struggle with Pettit too. I mean, because you show some contrition and say sorry.
Yeah,
you still did it, dude. Yeah, like
I went over to the Steinbrenner Field for that apology tour.
Yeah,
and it was squirmy. It was like it was better than Roger Clement's apology, which was that his wife was taking the steroids because she was in the swimsuit issue of Sports Illustrated. That's pretty weak.
But, good try though.
Yeah, good try.
Yeah.
There's like a double message. My wife's hot, and I didn't do it.
Yeah. Supportive husband. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that bus is still parked in the driveway that went over her.
Yeah, that's right.
Rob Manfred. I'm not a big fan. He
I am not at all on any level.
Definitely retiring at the end of his current term. But what comes before that is the negotiations for the upcoming CBA. Will his legacy depend on the outcome of that?
It's going to be a major part of it. That's for sure. For sure. That's on his last order of business type thing, right? So I think if you have Armageddon again and a lengthy strike, I think that will be his legacy. But a lot has happened over his tenure, right? Good and bad. So yeah, I think he's in for the biggest final battle that you'll see. So yeah, and I'm not sure I'd want him leading the charge, to be honest with you, but that's what's going to happen.
I mean, he did preside over the pitch clock, the ghost runner, innings, gambling becoming a legal part and an integral part of sponsorship and whatever. And I think the worst is yet to come in that regard. He navigated the game through COVID. The Astros scandal in 2019 when it broke from the 2017 World Series. There was a Pete Rose reinstatement, which we'll give to Donald Trump. The intentional walk, which I hate, holding up four fingers, although I did it last year for your Ironbacks several times.
That's right.
And the eliminate. But what he wants is after expansion, which will come when there's a new settlement, and they'll sell two expansion franchises for huge amounts of money, divided up among the owners. I mean, that might be the hammer that he's got going in terms of don't shut the game down because I want to expand and you will get billions of dollars from these new teams. I mean, that might be his hammer right there. But he wants expansion. And the thing I don't like is, I'm a traditionalist, you know it, the elimination of basically the American League and the National League. And he'd go to 8 divisions of 4 teams, and there'll be no separation of AL and NL. Do you think the game needs to progress? Do you think that this is all inevitable moving forward?
I have no problem with that at all. I know you do, very, very traditional. I think separating them by AL and NL is very archaic anymore. There's no difference in the leagues. The umpires don't use different protection. Like the game is the same all across the board. There's no pitchers hitting. I have no issue with a better setup that's geographical, and maybe the Jays and the Yankees can meet in the World Series instead of never having that option. I have no problem with that. That stuff I think is decent stuff to figure out. The economics of the game are the big thing to me, and the general way it's played. I'll give them credit. To me, the pitch clock is the best advancement in any sport over my lifetime. Move the game along, but there's other stuff too. The ghost runners, silly in my book. Stuff like that I don't like. But if there's one thing positive, I think putting through changes to move the game along, I'll give him full credit for that. I just find him to be a very petty kind of, jealous of other sports kind of guys. I mean, you've worked with him a bit, so have I. I've been in all those meetings in the winter, and I see the approach, and I see the pettiness sometimes, and how he views football and the NFL and things like that. And I don't know. It's just, and again, taking a knee to Trump and what he wants, and it's just about business. That bothers me. I don't like it. So we'll see what he does. But Armageddon is coming. We'll see. You're right. The only thing maybe that's going to stop it is that expansion. He doesn't want to shut the game down, but we'll see, because it's going to happen, I think.
Yeah. If you're going to make moves, if you're the commissioner and you're going to make moves like 4 geographically aligned teams in 8 divisions, then tell us the truth. Tell us what it's all about. It's about TV networks and not having a game start at 10 o'clock on the East Coast or a game start at 4 o'clock on the West Coast because you're playing on the other coast, which is basically what they want to do is to control broadcasting. And that's the future of the game. But just don't say, if you're the commissioner, don't say, well, the players are complaining about having to travel 5 hours and on flights, and it's a 162 game season. You've been on team flights. You don't even count the hour. You don't look at your watch and go, oh, are we there yet?
The longer the better.
Yeah, the longer the better.
It's true. It's such a comfortable, wonderful place to be. You enjoy the West Coast flights, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's not that difficult.
But the pitch clock, that I was opposed to the pitch clock when it came in. And now I'm a fan just like you. I'm not as big a fan of it, but I am a fan of the pace of game. And the pitchers got used to it. The hitters, they don't step out. Mike Hargrove would be out of the game in like a month.
Yeah, or he'd change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is, Griff, Manfred's trying to control every aspect of baseball, every aspect. He's trying to maximize profits, buying half the minor league systems, getting rid of levels, which is going to happen again. I mean, they're going to start to use the college game now as a development system. It's going to happen. He's trying to control every aspect of baseball, and God forbid somebody else wants to make $1 somewhere along the way. And I just find that to be, I don't know, it's more of an authoritarian approach like we're seeing in a lot of places. And I just find I don't think it's good for the game. It makes everything the same. And Major League Baseball shouldn't own all levels of baseball. It's just, that's where he's going with this. And it's not okay, man. It's just not okay.
It's funny because they cut down the minor leagues to 4 full minor league affiliates. And, there used to be all sorts of lower level teams. But you're right. I mean, college baseball is now able to pay athletes for their NIL. And like, are you telling me that a guy would rather sign $5,000 or say $100,000 signing bonus and go to Bluefield than to play in the facilities at Vanderbilt or LSU or places like that? So it's a reality that baseball was in advance of the reality that college baseball was going to become the feeding ground for Major League Baseball. You look at the Giants hired a college coach from Tennessee as their manager.
Yeah.
It's there. It's the minor league affiliates, and you talk about relics of the past. But Branch Rickey, when he initiated the minor league system, was reacting to the fact that there was nowhere else for these players to go. These young kids, these rural arms that could throw 90 miles an hour. And so that's where that came from. But those days are past. And maybe 4 minor league teams I don't think they can go any less than that.
The problem is those college programs aren't built to develop. They don't give a shit. You know what I mean? So while you're using that as you're reducing development levels, because you don't need them anymore, because you're going to be drafting guys at Vanderbilt and LSU, and they're still playing there, but their coaches aren't necessarily worried about. Maybe that changes though. Maybe that changes, but
You know where I came to that realization that you're talking about, the college coaching is different and they don't care about development as much, is when I managed your Ironbacks last summer, and every opposing team was coached by likely an assistant college guy. And you could see that winning was everything, that they didn't care about development. They ran their best team out there. And it was an eye-opener for me, even though I've been around the game for 53 years, not that college game. And it was interesting to see the different intensity levels.
Yes.
And our dugout didn't have that same intensity level about winning. We wanted to have fun. So
we did that.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Ernie Clement, speaking of having fun, here's a guy that has gone from, his progress has been incredible, to the point where he was named by Mark DeRosa to Team USA as probably their main super sub infielder. You got to be happy for Ernie Clement, who is a graduate of the Perfect Game Summer League.
Yeah.
But that's been a ride for Ernie Clement to where he is now.
Yeah, take it while you can, Ernie. That's for sure. Take your moment of fame here. He's certainly earned it, and let's see. He's certainly a super sub, and I'm glad to see a guy like that can get on the Olympic team, because he's a good team guy. And in a tournament like that, you need some of those guys, right? You need some of those guys you can rely on to catch the ball. You can't have just a team of bangers. So I'm happy to see that, and Ernie's the one guy I'm hoping has a career here, and he might, because of his defense. I don't expect the offense to continue, but maybe he's just solid enough to be a productive major leaguer. I was looking at that was never going to happen a couple years ago. So good for Ernie. I like to see it.
Yeah, we've talked about the versatility where he could be a starter at third base and second base, and that allowed for them to go out and sign the Japanese free agent to play third base. And now Ernie can play second. But there was a possibility that if Bo re-signed and played second, that he would play third base. So that versatility helped them this offseason tremendously.
Yep.
The same as Addison Barger, right field, third base. It gave them all sorts of flexibility in terms of pursuing free agents and trades. And, good for Ernie Clement. I love the guy. I love talking to him. I love watching his reaction. I love him crying after Game 7 of the World Series in the clubhouse and saying he doesn't want to leave. He wants to stick with his teammates in that clubhouse. That's all great emotion in baseball. But I think not because of Ernie Clement, but I think Mark DeRosa and Team USA are getting a little cocky in advance of the tournament. They added Clayton Kershaw. What? He's not even going to anybody's training camp.
Oh,
yeah. I think they're at the point where they just want to reward people. And this is dangerous, because I remember the initial World Baseball Classic when they thought they were going to waltz to the championship. And so they named Buck Martinez as the manager because he was doing broadcasts, and, it gave them more of a high profile. And the announcement was in Detroit. I think it might have been in the postseason, just before the postseason started. And they named Dontrell Willis the starting pitcher for Game 1. And that didn't work out. And they had all the all-stars, the veteran guys on that first team, and they fell on their face. They did not do well. And I think that after that all-star, all-world lineup that DeRosa has been announcing on MLB Network whenever he gets a chance, that they've gotten a little cocky and it might hurt them. So maybe Team Canada has a chance.
Yeah, that's right. Sneak in there.
We'll talk about Team Canada in a future podcast. Question now. Do the Red Sox have the best 5-man rotation in the AL East?
Yes.
They've got Garrett Crochet, Sonny Gray, Ranger Suarez, Brian Bale, and either Oviedo or Cutter Crawford.
If you recall, when we started at the end of the season, start of free agency, the guy I wanted the Jays to get was Ranger Suarez. I thought he was kind of the best fit, and he's I think he's a tremendous pitcher. I don't think the Jays, who I love their rotation, have two guys like Crochet and Suarez. I just don't think they do.
Yeah.
I'm picking at nits a little here, of course, but that Red Sox rotation is tremendous. I think it's the best one in the division. I do.
Yeah, and it's not like the Yankees where there's all sorts of injuries up and down that rotation. To me, it's a toss-up. The Blue Jays have Gosman, Dylan Cease, and maybe familiarity that we have with this rotation breeds contempt. But it's close. I mean, Boston and Toronto, you got Gosman, Dylan Cease, Trey Savage. There's question marks not about his stuff, but just about playing his first full season. Cody Ponce, question marks there about transitioning from Korean baseball to the major leagues, even though he had the best pitching season in the KBO of any history. Yeah. And then Shane Bieber, there's questions about his forearm issue heading into spring training, where the best that the general manager could say last November was that we think he'll be ready for opening day. And that's never a good thing when somebody says that on November the 7th.
And the other one, too, is that Yankee rotation's outstanding. I mean, they've got a lot of guys there. You get Garrett Cole back, and, I mean...
Well, they just traded Brian Weathers, who's a good stopgap as a 4 or 5 guy rotation. Max Fried, Cam Schlittler, Luis Gil, Ryan Weathers, Will Warren, who's
Rodon.
Rodon when he comes back, and Garrett Cole. I mean, the Yankees will probably get off to sort of a mediocre start and then do something when their pitching rotation gets solid again, when it gets healthy.
Well, the AL East will be fun. There's no question. It is a monster. So regardless, it's going to be quite fun, especially coming out of the gates. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, there's always in all the top divisions, there's a team that gets left behind, and the Tampa Bay Rays look to be that.
Yeah.
Finally, the lack of payroll is catching up with them, even if they are back in their familiar haunt across the street, or just off the highway.
Yeah, off the highway.
So, like, the NL West has the Colorado Rockies, the NL East has the Marlins, the AL East has the Rays, the AL West, I don't know who their poor boy is.
The AL West?
Yeah.
The Angels, probably.
No, God, I forgot the Angels. Yeah. They're trying, but they're not. Yeah. But there's 7 payrolls. This is before the signing of Kyle Tucker. Is the NL West was $1.034 billion payroll for the five teams in that division. Second was the NL East. Makes sense. $989 million. Then the AL East, just $3 million behind that. And then the 2 Centrals, obviously, Rust Belt cities, poor network contracts, TV contracts, and the NL Central and the AL Central were $680 million and $573 million. So I don't know how they can compete, which brings me to the question of TV networks.
Right.
There were regional sports networks were the way to go for a long time and carried a lot of these teams in the center of the country. And it was Bally, and then it was FanDuel. And FanDuel declared bankruptcy on their broadcast side in 2023. And now there's 9 teams that are either wondering where their future is in terms of broadcast revenue because of that bankruptcy and because MLB is helping a lot of teams produce their telecasts now. So, like, I don't know how they can compete. And this, to me, has got to be a big part of the CBA negotiation moving forward is teams like the Dodgers and the Blue Jays and the Yankees and the Mets need to be tapped into to keep some of those other teams viable.
Well, correct. Let's see how that goes, because this is the kind of a bit of a crisis they've never lived through before, right? These broadcasts, I can remember, like I was telling you earlier, it was big news when Texas signed that their deal for $162 million, basically $1 million a game. And back in the day, we used to cry for it because the Blue Jays got zero from Rogers, and they still do. However, it's all in the same. It's all from the same pocket, but it was an issue, and all these mid teams were signing these exorbitant TV contracts, and now those things have blown up.
Yeah.
So you're right. So that is a disparity from market to market. I'll give you that. So that is something Manfred needs to sort out. All that money is disappearing. So those Midwest teams. That's a lot of cake that they were getting, and that's no longer there. But somebody will step up and see the value in live sports, regardless if it's the Royals, Brewers, Pirates. There's still a lot of value there. You just have to find that carrier, whether the streaming services now. But you're right, that could be part of the negotiation as the disparity in markets. What the Dodgers get and how the Blue Jays handle it and the Yankees.
Well, it's an unbelievable advantage
for sure. You can't just leave that
unattended for the Blue Jays to be owned by their broadcast entity. And then you said not receive anything really. Bottom line, it's sort of going out of one pocket and into the other, but it reduces what they report as the team profit. Even though Rogers is getting all that money. So the 9 teams that are struggling with broadcasts are the Cardinals, Braves, Reds, Tigers, Royals, Angels, Marlins, Brewers, and Rays. And really, the Brewers are the only one and the Tigers, for the moment, seem to be overcoming that. The Braves are taking a dip, and that might be part of the reason why. So we'll move on now. A couple of items before we finish up. International free agent signing. The Jays signed catcher Juan Caracote from Venezuela for $1.9 million. Then signed an outfielder for $700,000, and then 8 more guys. So they only signed 1 pitcher in the international market. 4 outfielders, 3 shortstops, and one pitcher. So a couple of catchers. So, I mean, these guys are all 16 years old, 16, 17, and we won't see them in the majors for another 5-6 years.
Right.
So there's really no need to discuss.
Well, what's a bigger issue? It's like we said with the Yankees kind of pulling back from it.
They canceled all their offers.
Yeah. But you still got to be involved in that market. It's a wild west out there. I don't know what they're doing. That's like saying, well, we're not going to participate in the draft because most of the guys don't come to fruition. They all stink. I mean, you've got to participate. I mean, what's going on there is a bit of a gong show in New York right now. There's probably 1, maybe 2 guys that you're probably going to see. But you've got to be active in the international market or you don't get international players. Yeah. So they've got to retool that real quick. It's like I said, it's like them not participating in the draft because, we haven't done well.
Yeah.
That's just silly. I don't get it.
Well, let's finish up here with the 2 items, the NFL playoffs. I'll run down the spreads and you give me who you like. We'll start with Saturday. And the Bills getting 1.5 at Denver.
Well, as I said, I thought they were in tough last week, and they were. And Josh Allen won a football game by himself, so that can happen at any time. I mean, they're in even tougher. Not because I think Denver is some superpower, but they've had 2 weeks to rest. The Bills played 5 days ago, or whatever it is, 5 days of rest. They're beat up. They have no wide receivers. Josh is going to have to do it again. So I think they're in tough going into Denver. I don't know how you feel, but this would be a monumental accomplishment if they, in my opinion.
I think that just watching Josh Allen pick himself up off the ground 4 times last week.
It's awesome.
And with 5 days rest, those aren't going to heal up. And Mile High and 2 wide receivers on the shelf. I think it's a daunting task for the Bills, and their tradition continues. I think the Broncos will take them.
Fair enough.
So 49ers +7 at the Seahawks.
Well, that Eagles game was my biggest surprise, and I still think the Eagles were the better team and should have won, but they looked dysfunctional there with Mr. Brown at wide receiver, et cetera, et cetera. That was a messy season for them. I think Seattle will win, but I think San Fran's going to keep this thing within the point spread. That's a lot of points. Mike Shanahan's pretty good coach. I got Seattle by less than 7 is my pick. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'll take Seattle. But I'll take San Fran with the points.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Seahawks quarterback who seems to wander around and have good regular seasons and then falls apart. I mean, they haven't played a playoff game. They had a bye week, but it just gives him more time to think about Sam Darnold, to think about failure. And I think that the Niners aren't going to win, but they will keep it close.
Right.
Texans +3 at New England in the freezing cold of a Foxborough Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I think New England gets theirs this weekend. Houston obviously looked equally, inept in Pittsburgh from an offensive standpoint. My God, that was awful. I just struggled to see where New England's going to. I think this is the first Drake May roadblock where you're like, oh, there's more development to come here. I like Houston on the road. I just think that defense is going to manhandle New England's offense. I really do.
Yeah, I look at the first half and the Texans' offense not being very good last week in Pittsburgh. I look at the fact that they had a 42-year-old quarterback that they were going up against, and they just made him look like a donkey. And Drake May is a lot different than that. They're playing at home, New England. Mike Vrabel's been there, done it, and the 3 seems like a lot for a team that is on such a roll as the Texans. That's why I like the other side, because if you're trying to tease people into taking the Texans, it means the Patriots are going to romp.
Well, we at least disagree on that one.
Yeah. The last one is Rams -3.5 at Chicago against the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams are a distinctly better team. 3.5 at home is nothing to joke about in the playoffs, but I think the Rams haven't put a good game together in a while, and I think this is probably where you might see that. They're just a better football team all around. So I'll give the 3.5 and see the Rams get up early and then not fold like other teams have with Chicago. Give me the Rams.
Yeah, it's going to be apparently the weather is going to be horrific at Soldier Field.
I know.
And so I'm going to take the points, 3.5. But I do think that the Rams have the veteran leadership and the ability to win the game. I just think it'll come down to the maybe a doink at the end of the game. So.
Yeah, we've seen that before, so, especially in Chicago. So.
Anyway, I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening and for subscribing. Don't forget to share with your friends, and we look forward to talking to you again next week, and we'll see where Bo has ended up by then. But both of us are thinking Phillies. I'm hoping that he has a change of heart and signs with the Blue Jays, but it looks like Phillies and Don Mattingly. And the last image we saw of the World Series was those 2 guys hugging. So there you go.
There you go. Good luck.
All right, Mal. Thanks for joining. And we will see you people next week. And thanks for watching.